Welcome back to our deep dive discussion of the dystopian novel Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Today we're tackling chapter 16. This is a really pivotal chapter. It's where we get this intense philosophical showdown.
Absolutely. It kicks off with Bernard, Helmholtz, and John the Savage being brought into Mustapha Mond's study.
Yeah, not exactly a casual chat. They're basically on trial, even if it doesn't look like a courtroom.
Right, and the contrast in their reactions is immediate. Helmholtz is, well, almost amused by it all.
He calls it more like a caffeine solution party than a trial, which is such a Helmholtz thing to say.
Exactly. He's lounging, kind of detached. But Bernard, he's a wreck.
Oh, completely. He finds the worst chair, hunches down, and just radiating anxiety, hoping to look, I don't know, pathetic enough to be spared.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
And John, meanwhile, he's restless, looking around at all these forbidden books on Mond's shelves.
Yeah, that detail is fascinating. He actually picks one up, My Life and Work by R. Ford.
The big one.
But it's like a fleeting interest, because then the man himself, Mustapha Mond, walks in.
And that just changes everything. The whole atmosphere shifts. You feel the power in the room.
Definitely. It sets the stage perfectly for this clash that defines the chapter, doesn't it?
It really does. The world state's engineered happiness versus, well, everything John represents. Truth, beauty, messiness, individuality.
And Mond doesn't waste any time. He goes straight for John. So you don't much like civilization, Mr. Savage. Just like that.
And John, he was maybe ready to lie or argue, but Mond's manner, this sort of good-humored intelligence, it disarms him.
So he just tells the truth.
A simple no.
Which must have sent chills down Bernard's spine.
Oh, absolutely. Bernard visibly flinches. He's terrified of being linked to this open rebellion, essentially.
John does admit, though, there are nice things. He mentions the music.
Yes, the synthetic music. And then he does something unexpected. He quotes Shakespeare.
Right. Sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about my ears, from The Tempest.
And Mond knows it. Instantly.
That's the twist. The world controller knows the forbidden texts.
He not only knows it, he admits it freely, and then he turns to Bernard, rubbing it in a bit.
As I make the laws here, I can also break them, with impunity, Mr. Marx, which I'm afraid you can't do.
Ouch. It puts Mond in this unique position, doesn't it? He's above the rules he enforces. He's made a conscious choice.
It also gives John an opening. He asks the obvious question, why? Why ban Shakespeare?
And Mond's answer is just chillingly practical.
Because it's old. That's the chief reason.
He explains that beauty, especially old beauty, is attractive. And they don't want people attracted to old things.
They need them consuming the new, constantly, keep the wheels turning.
Exactly. It's about suppressing history, suppressing deep feelings that old art can evoke, keep everyone in the present moment.
John, of course, is disgusted. He calls the new stuff, the feelies, stupid and horrible, just helicopters and kissing.
He even uses that line from Othello, goats and monkeys, to show his contempt.
And Helmholtz, who's been quiet, actually pipes up here.
Yeah, he admits that kind of shallow stuff is what we've all been wanting to write. It's a sad confession, really.
Mond just shuts that down immediately.
Coldly, he tells Helmholtz, and it's what you never will write.
Why? Because if it were like Othello, nobody would get it in their world.
And if it were new, well, it couldn't be like Othello.
Yeah.
Because their world lacks the necessary ingredients.
Which are?
Social instability, strong emotions, tragedy, all the things the world state has eliminated.
Mond lays it out so clearly. The world's stable now. People are happy. They get what they want, and they never want what they can't get.
He lists everything they've gotten rid of. Mothers, fathers, lovers, wives, children, all the relationships that cause intense feelings.
And if anything does go wrong, any flicker of unhappiness.
There's soma, the universal fix.
So high art is the price they pay for stability.
Explicitly. Mond says that's the price we have to pay. They chose happiness, or rather contentment, over depth and truth.
Helmholtz sadly agrees that the feelies lack meaning, even if they're, sensorially complex.
And Mond, almost ironically, praises the enormous ingenuity needed to create art from pure sensation. It's perverse.
John's still horrified, especially by the Bokanovsky groups, those identical lower caste workers.
He remembers them swarming around his mother Linda's deathbed like human maggots. It's a powerful, disgusting image for him.
But for Mond...
How useful. That's his reaction. He calls them the foundation, the gyroscope that keeps the state stable.
It really forces you to ask, what is the cost of that stability? Is dehumanization acceptable for order?
That's the core question Huxley is posing through Mond. Mond believes Yes, it is.
John then asks a logical follow-up. If you're mass-producing humans, why not make everyone an alpha double plus? Why have lower castes at all?
Mond's answer is pure, cold pragmatism.
Because we have no wish to have our throats cut.
Right. A society of only alphas, people capable of independent thought and responsibility, would be chaos, according to him. Unstable. Miserable.
An alpha doing epsilon work would just revolt.
Or go mad. They need people conditioned to like their simple, repetitive tasks.
Which leads Mond to tell the story of the Cyprus experiment.
Ah, yes, the big historical justification. It's crucial for his argument.
He explains how they cleared Cyprus and populated it only with alphas, 22,000 of them.
Gave them everything they needed, left them to run things themselves.
And the result?
Predictable, in Mond's view. Disaster. Strikes, nobody worked, laws ignored, fighting over the best jobs.
Basically, total breakdown.
Ending in a first-class civil war. He says 19,000 of the 22,000 died in 6 years.
Wow.
And the survivors actually begged the world controllers to come back and take over.
So for Mond, this is ironclad proof. You need the hierarchy. You need the Bukhanovsky groups.
You need the iceberg structure. 8/9 below the waterline, 1/9 above. It's the only way, he argues, for stability and happiness. Engineered inequality is essential.
John still doesn't buy it. He thinks the lower castes must hate their awful work.
But Mond counters that. They don't find it awful. Their conditioning makes them like it.
Yeah.
It's simple, easy.
And afterwards, they get soma, games, sex, feelies.
Their engineered happiness. They don't desire anything more because they're conditioned not to. It's insidious.
Mond even brings up another experiment, Ireland. Put on a 4-hour workday. Sounds good, right?
You'd think. But the result was unrest. People had too much leisure, didn't know what to do with it, and just took more soma.
So Mond argues too much free time is actually bad for them. Sheer cruelty, he calls it.
Yeah, it reinforces the idea that everything, even leisure, needs to be managed for stability. He even says making food synthetically would be bad because farming keeps people busy.
And he was about to be sent to an island for it, for pursuing truth too far.
But he chose differently. He chose to become a controller, to manage other people's happiness instead of pursuing his own scientific truth.
He calls happiness a hard master.
A profound admission. He sacrificed his own passion for the sake of the system he now runs. It shows the depth of his commitment to this engineered world and maybe the personal cost.
So what's the policy on science now?
Mond says unrestricted science led to things like anthrax bombs during the 9 Years' War. That's when people became willing to give up everything for peace and quiet.
Even truth.
Even truth. Mond sums it up. It hasn't been very good for truth, of course. But it's been very good for happiness. One can't have something for nothing. Happiness has got to be paid for.
It's a terrifyingly clear statement of their philosophy.
And hearing all this about islands, about punished science, just breaks Bernard.
It completely falls apart.
Totally loses it. He starts blaming John and Helmholtz, crying, begging Mond not to send him to Iceland. It's quite pathetic, honestly.
It shows how fragile his rebellion really was. Deep down, he's still conditioned to fear exile, to crave the system's approval.
Mond just has him sedated with soma and taken away. But then he makes that remark.
That the punishment, being sent to an island, is actually a reward.
Yes, he redefines it. He says the islands are where all the interesting people end up, the nonconformists.
All the people who, for one reason or another, have got too self-consciously individual to fit into community life.
People with independent ideas. Basically, anyone who can't quite fit the mold, who thinks too much or feels too much.
It's a kind of safety valve for the world state, isn't it? Get the troublemakers out of the way, but let them live amongst their own kind.
Exactly. It contains dissent without outright killing. And Mond admits he sometimes envies them.
He reveals he chose controllership over pure science, over being sent to an island himself.
And he says happiness is a harder master than truth, especially if you aren't conditioned for it. It suggests he's not entirely happy himself, maybe.
A fascinating glimpse into his own complex position. He then turns to Helmholtz.
Offers him a choice of island, a choice of climate.
And Helmholtz's answer tells you everything about him.
He doesn't want comfort. He wants a bad climate. Wind, storms.
Right.
He thinks he'd write better. He's seeking challenge, seeking authentic experience to fuel his art, even if it's harsh.
A total contrast to Bernard's fear.
Absolutely. He wants the grit, the reality.
Mond seems to respect that, even as he officially disapproves. I like your spirit, Mr. Watson.
He suggests the Falklands and Helmholtz accepts. Then he goes off to check on Bernard. A very different departure than Bernard's.
So this chapter really lays it all bare. Mond explains the rationale behind the world state, the suppression of art, history, science, individuality, all for stability and contentment.
It leaves us with that huge question Huxley wants us to wrestle with. Is this engineered happiness worth the price? Is a life without real choice, without struggle, without deep art or inconvenient truths, truly a happy life?
What are we willing to trade for comfort, for security? It's something that feels increasingly relevant, perhaps.
It certainly makes you think about our own world and the choices we make between convenience and, well, deeper meaning.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive, and we look forward to seeing you when we discuss the next chapter.